grinding endings. I'll have to do. Current unlocks. You are
Kyle woke up. He is
famous.
Kyle thought very carefully about the first move of his. Kyle was struck today.
We'll get rust.
Kyle decided.
I want you.
Kyle. Mayor.
6.
Kyle rifled through the cases to decide which he would investigate this evening.
This one. We'll do this one.
Kyle nodded. There's no question. I know exactly what mystery to investigate this evening. Mayor Tom looked at Kyle sadly. Kyle exited. It was time to investigate the mystery of I cannot find my cat. Kyle traveled to a quiet little cul-de-sac at the edge of town. The streets were bare, as the sun barely... Hello there, said Kyle. I am here to investigate a grievance we received from this residence.
Oh, hey,
Said the woman.
my name is Anna. I can't find my cat.
Kyle, I understand the problem. Kyle walked inside the house. Kyle removed the magnifying glass from his pocket and
So, what are you doing?
asked Anna. I need to find your cat, said Kyle. He started crawling close to the floor, inspecting every piece of her carpet.
That's a lot.
I mean, I looked through that.
Kyle got up off his knees, stood up, and looked Anna in the face. I don't trust ignorance, he said. Kyle returned to the floor, slowly examining every inch with his magnifying glass. After several hours, Kyle had finished with his examination. Anna, he said, I have good news. Anna looked at Kyle suspiciously. I think you need to vacuum more often. Unwittingly, Kyle had just uttered the ancient words meant to bind a soul to the eldritch gods.
Oh.
Kyle sprouted tentacles out of his eyes and mouth. He started to melt in place, his arms welding to his sides. Kyle was transforming into an ancient eldritch beast. Anna expressionlessly walked to the kitchen, grabbed a frying pan, and began to beat Kyle over the head. Anna continued beating Kyle over and over. Kyle screeched the cry. Eventually, Kyle had taken enough damage to disincentivize the Kyle's eyeballs regrew and soon, Kyle and Anna spent the rest of the day searching. After many hours of searching, they decided to put up some... Kyle left Anna's house feeling disappointed in his... Kyle laid his head down, hoping that they would... Kyle had tried to solve the mystery of I can't find my cat.
Right.
Kyle thought very... Kyle was... to...
Hit rest.
Kyle Kyle...
Sit at desk. What else do I have? Me?
Kyle...
Go to the store and buy some? Ooh. Fucking hands.
Kyle...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Kyle nodded. There's no question.
Darn.
Kyle
do.
thought very... Kyle was... today...
Open closet. Get ready.
Kyle decided... Kyle...
Get money.
Kyle's... Kyle perched... Mayor...
Five.
Kyle rifled through... Kyle nodded. Kyle.
What is the rest of the note?
It. Kyle traveled to a young. Hello.
5, 6,
Ki-
7.
Alright. Kyle walked inside the house. Kyle removed the suction hands from his pocket and began to go to work. He began climbing the wall next to the stair. Then he started climbing the walls in the living room. Before he knew it, Kyle ran outside, panting, looking for the largest. He leapt onto the side of Anna's, but as he reached, Kyle swung his arms far above his head, pushing downward in the air. At first, Kyle stayed level and flailing wild. One by one, Anna's neighbor, and then Kyle plummeted down to the ground, crashing straight. But then, Kyle started scrambling madly into the air. Kyle spent the next several hours going up. Eventually, he realized Kyle floated away from the neighborhood. Free, he realized Kyle spent his evening chasing after songbirds and geese. Kyle had found an abundant source of. Kyle became a migratory predator. Kyle had completely forgotten about Anna's case.
Oops.
Kyle thought Kyle was today.
Gotta get out.
Kyle decided. Kyle.
Skip this. Maybe that does something.
Kyle entered the mayoral office. Mayor Tom sat. Mayor. Kyle rifle. Kyle. Kyle exited. It was time to investigate them. Kyle walked inside the house. I think I'm going to talk to some of the neighbors and see if they have any ideas where your cat went, said Kyle. Anna
Oh, don't bother,
she said.
I'm sure they would have told me if they saw any trace of it.
But Kyle was already on his way out. Hi there, said Kyle. The old man looked at Kyle blankly. After chatting a bit more, Kyle moved on to. I haven't seen her cat ever, she said, but actually several of my own. As Kyle went from house to house, he gradually found. Kyle returned to.
Well, it sounds like a bigger issue than just.
Anna pushed Kyle out. Kyle stood outside for a moment, confused. But then, Kyle reported the next day, several the leads for the case dried up. Kyle tried his best to. Kyle did not solve the case of I can't find my cat.
Oops. Oh, new background.
It was time to. Kyle walked inside the house.
Damn.
Kyle decided to ask Anna a few questions first. What does your cat look like?
He's big, said Anna. Really big. He's bigger than you, actually.
Kyle moved on to his next question. When did you last see your cat?
Oh, that was when I was feeding him one.
A couple days.
Well, it depends how quickly I can catch the neighbor's pets, if I'm being honest.
Kyle moved on to his next question. So, Anna? Anna look.
Well, so...
Kyle felt like there was. Kyle shrugged. Well, said Kyle. Anna. She brought Kyle to a large, fenced-in area.
I usually feed him in his run,
said Anna.
but I think he saw a rat.
Kyle nodded, because. Well, I guess I'll write up a report and see if it.
Thanks, detective.
Said Anna. Kyle left Anna's house and as he sat writing, perhaps someday he would return to this case, but not tonight. It was time to. Kyle decided to ask Anna a few questions first. What? Kyle moved on to his next.
Wait. Oh,
A couple.
what?
Kyle moved. So, Anna looked.
Well,
Kyle felt like there was something he was missing, but. Hey, Anna, said. Kyle? Said Rachel. Is that you? I didn't know we had radios. Don't detectives ever use phones? Well, anyway, Rachel, I'm really. Kyle It almost sounds like she's talking about a bear? Kyle, I think you should check around and see if you can find anything amiss. I'll see what I can find, Rachel. Rachel. And it was your cat by Anna.
If I tell him?
Kyle.
Well, I kept a bear in my backyard and...
A silent,
What?
said Anna. Anna brought Kyle to her.
So, I first thought he might have chewed through the fence, right? Notice how even?
Kyle Well, said Kyle.
I don't know.
After a moment, and I need to go meet up with my partner, but if what I'm thinking is true, Kyle rushed. The two met at Kyle's studio. So, said Rachel, if the bear was a distraction for it, I can only imagine it would have. The two discussed. As it became late in the evening, Kyle left. But one thing had been made certain: that.
Yeah.
Kyle was struck today. Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realized. Kyle scooped up the chain.
I need to buy that one thing, the magic wipes. There we go.
Kyle perched. Mayor.
Detective.
Mayor. Kyle rifled. Mayor Tom looked at Kyle sadly.
Excellent. All of our hope is riding on you.
It was time to investigate the Kyle walked in.
There.
Kyle removed the magic wipes from his pocket.
Ooh. I guess we'll have to try each one of these. Let's try this one.
Kyle wiped Anna with the magic wipe. Before she could say anything, Anna was transported to the magic dimension. Suddenly, Kyle felt very unsure about his decision. Kyle wandered around the house. Nothing. Kyle sat for a while and thought about how he decided to take the next couple days off.
I would too.
It was Kyle removed the magic wipes from his pocket. For this operation, Anna, it's best.
Alone?
It is. Anna has. Kyle started wipe. The wipe transported every chunk it touched, creating large gashes in the. Soon, the walls became structurally. Kyle did not stop. Within a few minutes, Kyle had removed. Kyle crawled out from.
Detective.
Kyle.
Well,
Kyle smiled. As he walked home, Kyle thought about. But Kyle had not solved. It was time. Kyle removed the magic wipe. Kyle started wiping as each piece of furniture.
detective.
Kyle. Within a few minutes, Anna's house had been. Well, said Kyle. Can't seem to find any cats here. I'd say it's hopeless. Bye. Kyle exited the. Mayor Tom. Mayor.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I did, sir, said Kyle. But even with their help, I just wasn't able to.
Some cases can't be cracked.
Kyle, I will come back tomorrow. Kyle turned.
Oh, and Kyle,
He said.
I couldn't be more pleased with your results.
Then he shut the door. It was time. Kyle removed. Kyle began dabbing himself with the magic wipes. With a fizz, a pop, and a magic elf chuckle, Kyle looked around. Toads floated around him, turning inside out one by one as Kyle focused on them. The ground was firm and slimy. As Kyle stood, he slowed. Most importantly, a large clown stood before Kyle, watching him expression. After several minutes, the clown spoke.
Welcome to the magic dimension. I am Harry the Clown. We have known each other in the human realm.
Kyle understood that it was his friend Harry that had gone missing years ago.
In this realm,
Said Harry.
I reside as the Clown King.
Here. Harry, he said.
Thank you, Kyle. Now I may live the rest of my days in the magic dimension carefree and happy. For your services, I will...
Harry snapped his fingers. Kyle began to sink into the ground. Lower, lower, and lower. And suddenly, Kyle conducted the investigation with Anna for the remainder of the day, but his mind was with Harry. As the evening came, Kyle and Anna had not made progress on finding her cat. It was decided to try. Kyle left. He thought about it. But Kyle's heart lay in the kingdom of the Clown King.
Trophy. That block's done.
Kyle woke up. He is famous.
Bug vigilante.
Kyle was struck. Today, Kyle donned a dusty Kyle entered the Mayor. Kyle rifled through the Kyle nodded. There's no question. Mayor Tom looked at Kyle sadly.
Excellent.
Kyle exited Mayor Tom's office to prepare for his evening. Mayor Tom requested that Kyle and Rachel meet him at City Hall to begin. Kyle arrived at the requested time. Mayor Tom turned around. Kyle took a seat next to Rachel. Mayor Tom spoke.
The Bug Vigilante. A symbol. Many in the... From this point,
Said Mayor Tom.
you're
Mayor Tom.
Well,
Mayor Tom fidgeted in his chair for a little while. After a while,
so you two...
Kyle and
Excellent.
said Mayor Tom. Mayor Tom turned to Kyle.
Kyle,
Rachel got up. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation would be. I think I would like to... Mayor Tom...
Allow me to make arrangements.
Within a few minutes, Kyle was facing a young man in a ball cap and a leather jacket. Hey there, said Kyle. I'm a detective. The young man... Kyle decided what question he would like to ask the man.
That's a good one.
Where can I find the best yams? Asked Kyle earnestly. The man looked at Kyle with a blank expression. Then he spoke.
I am the best yams!
That's how you translate
The
that
man's
word.
body exploded into hundreds of yams. Kyle sprang to his feet and started gathering the yams. As soon as he had as many... Kyle shilled the yams to passers-by, selling... Kyle had kick-started a yam business. Over the next
yams.
several years, Kyle became the main yam... However, Kyle never solved the mystery of the Bug Vigilante. Kyle thought... Kyle would... Today... Kyle decided... Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door, and a middle-aged woman named Gabby answered. Kyle... Job done. Kyle... Mayor... Kyle rifled... Kyle not... Mayor Tom looked at Kyle sadly. Kyle exited Mayor Tom... Kyle decided it was time to invest... Kyle thought... I think I would like to conduct an interview. Mayor Tom...
Allow me...
Within a few... Hey there, The young Kyle decided what question he would. Kyle spat Gabby onto the floor of the office. Gabby, he whispered to her. Gabby looked at Kyle. Kyle pulled her upwards with his hand. This is my assistant, Gabby in. Hey!
I'm Tony. See you.
Gabby No! She said. I mean, not now!
Yeah,
Said Tony.
pretty much.
Gabby crossed her arms into her.
And I also think that they were about your height.
Well, that's no concern of yours.
I only saw them once.
Gabby slowly removed.
Well,
She said.
this...
Gabby got. Kyle looked at the. This has been a great. Kyle left the case of the bug vigilante. He asked Gabby if she would be interested in. Kyle did not solve the case of the bug vigilante. Kyle thought. Kyle was. Today. Kyle.
Maybe I need my magnifying glass.
Kyle. Mayor. Kyle rifled through. Kyle nodded. There's no question. I know exact. Kyle exited Mayor. Kyle decided it was time to investigate. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the. I think I would. Mayor.
Oh,
With it. The. Kyle decided what question. Kyle pulled out his magnifying glass and began to look closely at the man's face. Kyle could not seem to find any interest. Kyle started to investigate other parts of the office, trying to find. Kyle found no such. Kyle started to become. Soon he burst. Kyle started to build information. Kyle's database of information grew, but he still could. Kyle expanded his. Soon, the mysteries of the world were laid out before. Except, however, the answer to the mystery of the bug. It seemed that the bug vigilante. Kyle informed Mayor. Kyle spent the rest of his life. He started. But no matter what Kyle did.
Dang it.
Kyle thought. Kyle was. Today, Kyle.
Gotta get
Kyle
rest.
Kyle.
Maybe
Mayor Tom sat behind. Kyle right. Kyle. Mayor. Kyle exited Mayor Tom. Kyle decided. Kyle thought about what his course of action. Mayor.
oh,
With it. There. The. Kyle decided what question he would like to ask the man. Yo, said Kyle. You know anything? The man. Because I don't, and I don't really want to know more. So let's say that I was interested in catching a 5-pound bass, but I was in a lot. So I do an overhead cast straight out and try to land like 100 feet from the boat. Is it better to have 2mm or 3mm line? The man continued. Have you tried fishing in the... The two immediately skipped up. They sat together at the edge of the lake, catching and... Kyle started to amass a pile of cheery salesmen and grandparents that had fallen in over a period of time. The fish were incredibly thankful and promised Kyle to return. Eventually, the duo became... They walked home together. They had not found... Kyle had...
Hold on.
Kyle thought about what his course of... I think I would... Mayor... Oh. With... The... Kyle decided...
Where did I put my shoes?
Dude, where did my shoes go? Asked Kyle.
aren't you wearing them right now? Are you barefoot?
Nope, said Kyle. No shoes. He helped.
That's a shoe.
False, said Kyle. I cannot see... The man in the ball cap and Mayor Tom looked at each other in confusion. Kyle continued to monologue. I don't think you're wearing shoes. I don't think... Kyle began to spin around. Mayor Tom and the man... As they left, Mayor Tom... Kyle continued to monologue far into the night about shoes. He woke the next morning with... Kyle had not solved. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation would be. Kyle, Mayor Tom, said Kyle, I have solved. I'm like 50% sure that Mayor Tom. Come on, Mayor Tom, said Kyle. If I weren't the. Kyle folded himself in half. Kyle started to scuttle around.
I am unconvinced.
Kyle looked at Mayor Tom Watt. Kyle's abdomen swelled to double. See, Mayor Tom? It's not enough. Kyle spent the. Eventually, Kyle had transformed. Kyle crawled. After a few days, Kyle returned to be the mystery of the bug. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation. Mayor Tom, said Kyle, I have solved the case already.
Mayor Tom.
Kyle pointed his finger forward. I think you're the bug vigilante. Mayor.
Kyle, why on earth?
As Kyle jumped on. Admit! Mayor Tom grabbed. There was a sign.
I am not the bug vic.
Mayor Tom struck Kyle with. Kyle sank to. As he did.
You'll wake up.
And Kyle's vision. Kyle decided. Kyle thought about what his course of act. Kyle. Mayor Tom. I think it's best if we just arrest everyone, and then if we do that, we'll definitely arrest the bug vigilante. Mayor Tom started. And technically, continued Kyle. Mayor Tom looked at Kyle.
Could be worse.
The next morning, nobody really much understood, but Kyle was awarded many accolades for. Blaming everyone became a staple of Kyle's career. And because everyone was being unwittingly, Kyle had brought the city together. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation would be. I want to investigate the scene at the.
I understand.
Within an hour, Kyle and Mayor Tom.
This is where the bug vigilante was.
Mayor Tom began to walk. Kyle decided how he wanted to conduct his investigation.
Oh. I don't think spinning screen won't do anything.
Kyle grabbed on. Kyle had cut. Traffic. But you want it? Kyle had brought the world to a standstill. Kyle thought of. Kyle decided it would be best to interview some of the passers-by. After a couple minutes, Kyle stepped in. Are you the bug? No. Kyle. The girl looked at. I don't know, said Kyle. That's why I'm asking you. Who is the bug vigilante? Kyle. Maybe he's the bug vigilante. Wordless. Over the next several hours, as the day waned, Kyle walked home tired and defeated. He thought about the trials. When he arrived at his apartment, however, Kyle knelt. Kyle, I know you are be wary of those around you. Don't take a friendship. P.S. I left you some cookies on your counter. Don't forget garbage is tomorrow. Kyle looked. Tomorrow, he would Kyle continued to investigate the mysteries that were around him. Kyle was today. Kyle decided to Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing Kyle firm. What? There was a. Kyle rifled through the cases to decide. Kyle exited. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation would be.
What'd I do?
Kyle thought very carefully. Kyle was today. Kyle I heard right. Well, what I will. There was a stunned silence. Then. Oh! Kyle decided over the rest of the day. Eventually, Mayor Tom moved his. Mayor Tom found he. Mayor. The. Kyle. It was. Kyle. Kyle had indeed. Kyle thought very. Kyle was struck. Today.
Why didn't I get dressed?
Kyle
That's why.
decided. Kyle. Kyle. What? There was a stop. Kyle entered the mayor. Our mayor. Kyle rifle. Kyle not. Kyle exited Mayor Tom's office to prepare. Kyle decided it was time to investigate the mystery of the bug vigilante. Mayor Tom. Kyle. Mayor. Kyle took it. Mayor Tom spoke.
The bug. Manny, from this, your best is expected.
Kyle.
Yes, Kyle?
Yeah, said Kyle. Mayor Tom. It's my neighbor Gabby, continued. Mayor Tom ran past Kyle and out of the office. Kyle. When the everything. The detective. Over the next few months. The. Kyle continued. But deep down. Kyle thought. Kyle was. To. Kyle dis. Kyle.
Man.
Kyle. Kyle. Make. Make. Kyle right. Kyle no. Kyle exited Mayor Tom's office to prepare for his evening of investigation. Kyle decided it was time. Kyle thought about what his course of action for. With the. Kyle removed the magnifying glass from his pocket. Kyle began to. Kyle continued his Kyle wondered. Kyle realized that before he could properly. Kyle turned the magnifying glass. Kyle's pants caught on fire. Kyle dropped his magnifying glass. It was no use. Out of nowhere, a masked figure appeared, dropping Kyle to the ground and. Kyle lay on the ground for a moment. Kyle stared into. Before Kyle could say. For the next. And the bug vigilante. Kyle retrieved his hat. It was time for him. Kyle walked home. Kyle had.
Cool.
Kyle thought. Kyle. Today. Kyle just. Kyle grabbed the tasting.
that?
Ma- Kyle, right? Kyle nodded. There's no question. Kyle exited Mayor Tom's office to prepare. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the Kyle decided how he wanted to conduct his Kyle crouched on the ground, bit by the bug. As Kyle continued to, but then, as he continued to taste Kyle stumbled. Had he already swallowed? Kyle ran to City Hall. Detect! Kyle began. Soon, Kyle realized that within a few minutes, the case was never.
Dang
Kyle thought. Kyle grabbed the tasting helmet and Kyle nodded. Mayor Tom. Kyle exited Mayor Tom's office to. Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation. I want to. With it. Mayor. Kyle decided how he wanted to conduct. Kyle spread his arms wide, tipped his. Kyle began to. And then. Kyle realized that. Kyle grabbed the. Kyle focused really hard. Suddenly, eyes grew out of Kyle's. And then, Kyle smiled and. Every member of the audience had silently mimicked Kyle, stretching their mouths. They stood. The next morning, Kyle briefly tried to investigate the mystery of. Kyle continued his healthy career as a. Kyle did not.
What the? That's a totally different one.
Kyle thought very carefully. Kyle was. Today. Kyle just. Mayor Tom sat behind his desk. He had been expecting Kyle's appearance. Mayor. Kyle rifled. Kyle decided. Mayor Tom. Kyle took a seat.
Many, from this point,
Mayor Tom.
Well,
Mayor Tom fidgeted. Hey, since we're asking questions, Mayor, something was really fishy about the bear. And then on a later case, we found that someone's pet bear had been let out of their. Rachel continued Kyle's thought. It almost seemed. Mayor Tom.
This is ridiculous,
He said.
I can't have my detective. I don't want you two thinking about anything but the buck. If I hear anything more about using bears as bait for someone, I'll...
Mayor Tom? A short silence followed.
Right, sorry, I got mixed up. Please continue.
Mayor Tom Rachel turned to face Kyle. Kyle, let's meet back here later this evening and take... We can come back when everyone else is left and hope... The two agreed. He decided to take a when he would awake, his detective story would be in its final chapter.
Trophy.
Kyle awoke. It was 1 o'clock. Kyle, quiet. Rachel was standing on the corner a block away from the...
Hey, you.
She whispered. Rachel started...
I was watching the other detectives as they...
The back of City Hall was bland. Bushes... Rachel started spreading each bush apart, looking for any... Kyle looked around the wall. Something struck him as being odd, but... Rachel, he said. Kyle pushed his hand onto the jam wall. It was formed like wood and stone, but was incredibly sticky. And suddenly, the wall... The pair tumbled down a dark... And suddenly, they... Kyle looked up from the ground. And in the center...
Hello, Kyle and Rachel,
said the jam man.
I see that the time...
The jam man began to pace in circle.
Time after time, I watched you from the... Soon, I realized you... I tried to get you, Kyle, to eat my jam and become my servant. Then, the moment you found the I lured you here to my jam lair so that we might finish...
The jam man grabbed... His skin And then, with a snap, the jam man's face fell off, revealing none other...
Mayor Tom!
Hold on, wait,
said Mayor Tom.
I'm not in my final form yet.
Mayor Tom grabbed the front of his face and his skin began to stretch and tear. Mayor Tom grabbed his face with his other hand and began to pull harder, stretching his... And then, with a massive crunch, Mayor Tom's face came off, revealing beneath a young boy.
Jerry the hot dog boy,
gasped Rachel.
Has it always been you?
Yes, said the boy. I have always been Mayor Tom. I had such a sweet deal being elected. I was able to enact a law saying that no crime would ever be my fault. It was wonderful. But then the cursed bug vigilante caught on to me, and soon to follow, so did you two. Jerry flicked his hand. I must retain my grasp on this city, as there is much to do. Jerry stuck his hand down his throat and removed 2 large, pointy hot dogs. He lunged at Kyle and Rachel, jabbing furiously. Rachel rolled to the side, pushing Kyle out of Jerry's way with her... She drew a blunt weapon hidden beneath her shirt and began approaching Jerry, striking his hot dog weapons. Kyle got to his feet and looked around to get his bearings. Slowly, Kyle realized that each person... Kyle rushed toward the nearest individual. He forcefully inserted himself into their mouth and crawled... Kyle began pushing and grabbing at the sides of the stomach, looking for... Kyle opened his jaw wide and inhaled the jam he found, clearing the... As soon as the jam... One by one, Kyle cleaned each of Jerry's followers of jam. And, after a period of time, the followers began to look around them, confused. They looked at Jerry fighting with Rachel. The mob threw... In retaliation, Jerry oozed hot dog minions out of his pores. They fought with the angry... But it was no use. Suddenly, with a burst of speed, Jerry jumped backwards and turned into a jam pile. He perched on top of a nearby... You might think that by getting rid of me, crime will cease. But I am not the only crime lord of this city. Rachel. Jerry took a moment to look at the people below him, but suddenly he disappeared. Over the next few days, Rachel and Kyle launched an investigation. Man-hour after man-hour was put in... The detective force grew to be incredibly strong. Case after case was solved, and eventually, the two resigned from their detective. The sun was soft in the sky, yellow wisps. Rachel put her hand on Kyle's shoulder and stopped him next to a bench. They sat. Kyle and Rachel stayed on the bench together for several hours. They chatted about the cases, then about life, then about them. As evening came, Kyle got up to return to his apartment. Rachel caught his hand. Kyle, I have something for you, she said.
I know your phone situation is not the best, so I got you something so we can keep in contact.
Rachel pressed a new phone into Kyle's hand. Kyle smiled gratefully.
And Kyle, she said, are you going to go back to your interviews? Stay up late with Kyle coming back on air?
Kyle looked down at Rachel. She was looking right into his eyes.
If it is, she said, let's do my interview. I would really appreciate that.
Rachel suddenly jumped up from the bench and gave Kyle a quick peck on the cheek. Without saying anything more, Rachel walked away from the bench, a small bounce in her step. But for a moment, she looked back, and she smiled. As Rachel continued to disappear down the walkway, Kyle thought about what they had talked about that night. Somehow, they had let Jerry the hot dog boy slip through their grasp. But at the same time, somehow, it didn't matter. Kyle's final mystery had been solved.
Trophy.
Kyle woke up. He is famous. Kyle decided to take some time to chew. Kyle miraculously crammed his dumpy body into the... Kyle wrote down his first question. Kyle wrote down his second. Kyle wrote down his third question. Kyle wrote down his last question. Kyle ripped his page of... Kyle opened the fridge. Kyle constructed a breakfast of Kyle ate... Kyle asked the store attendant whether or not... The attendant gave Kyle a Wanting Kyle to leave, the attendant grabbed a decrepit phone meant for spare parts and held it out. Kyle took the phone placently from the outstretched hand and said quietly, Kyle now has this phone to use forevermore. Sitting across, as Kyle approached, good? Kyle responded. And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in... A moment after seating, the studio lights bright. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I have the pleasure... Kyle motioned to... Well, Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier. Rachel. Are you guilty? Kyle threw his questions on the floor, stood up and pointed at her. Rachel's eye twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? She smiled, Guilty, spat Kyle. Of your crimes! Rachel did not answer. Her eyelids both started twitching Kyle whipped out his phone and started dialing the police. Kyle quickly realized that the broken phone he had gotten for free was not a... Kyle looked sadly at his hand, realizing he had botched a wonderful opportunity. Rachel looked at Kyle. What's the problem, Kyle? Anything I can help you with? Kyle looked up from his hand sad. The interview continued on. Kyle forced a smile through the entire episode, but Kyle had Kyle woke up. He is famous. Kyle miraculously crammed his Kyle wrote down his first question. Kyle wrote down his last question. Kyle opened the fridge. Kyle constructed a breakfast. Kyle. Sit. As Kyle. Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to being. Kyle responded. And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. After other mild exchanges, a moment after. Good evening. Tonight, Kyle. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier. Rachel's guilty. Rachel did not answer. Her eyelids both started twitching uncontrollably. Kyle pulled out his phone and dialed. Hello, police, said Kyle. I believe I have found a criminal. Rachel began to run towards the exit. On her way, she swatted Kyle's phone out of his hand. Kyle stuck out his leg. Rachel stumbled and crashed to the floor. But in a moment, she was on her feet. She drew a blunt weapon. Before Kyle had a chance to react, a figure burst through the roof and... It was a middle-aged woman in a bug-shaped mech. The woman began to fight with Rachel, flicking her weapon back. Rachel tried to fight back, but it was obvious. With one quick move, the weapon clattered to the... She fell at the... Rachel was charged with 7 cases of grand larceny. After her first month in jail, Rachel started a reality TV show about prison cooking. The show gained immense popularity. Kyle made guest... The identity... She remained a mysterious but important part of local law enforcement. Kyle wrote down his second. Kyle wrote down.
I'm determined to catch this lady.
Kyle opened the fridge, Kyle ate his breakfast slowly and thoughtfully. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door.
Well, if I take her with me.
Job done. Kyle, sitting as Kyle. Good evening, Kyle. Kyle responded. And after a moment after seating, the tonight, Kyle produced the note. Rachel.
Are you guilty?
Kyle threw his questions on the floor. Rachel. Guilt. Rachel did not. Kyle pulled out his phone and dialed the... Hello, police. Rachel Kyle's... But in a moment, Kyle, having nothing to defend himself...
Oh.
Kyle lost consciousness several times. Rachel, thinking Kyle... Eventually, standing upright or not, Rachel glanced... In the following day, Kyle was credited with... Nevertheless, Rachel was never caught.
Boo. Does that count? Yep, okay. 2 left.
Kyle woke up. He is famous.
Don't think I gotta consume her. Gotta get dressed.
Kyle.
Gotta write the notes.
Kyle wrote down. Kyle.
Think I need anything.
Kyle open. Kyle can. Kyle.
Ate breakfast. We're fine. Let's try something different.
Kyle hurried to the set. As good? Kyle. And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. You are a most welcome. After. A moment after. Good evening. Tonight. Ooh. Kyle produced the notes he had. Rachel. Rachel did not. Kyle pulled out. Hello. Rachel began to run towards the exit. On her way, she swatted Kyle's phone out of his hand.
Let her go.
Rachel disappeared out the. In the coming days, Kyle was credited with exposing A month later, in the European city that Rachel had planned to vacation in, crime rates skyrocketed.
Dang it. Well, that counted.
Kyle woke up. He is famous.
Maybe if I...
Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor, a middle-aged woman named Gabby. Kyle unhinged. Job done. Kyle Kyle started to pick, but soon Kyle threw back his head and crammed the sticky, wriggling Kyle wrote down his... Kyle ripped... Sitting... As... Good evening, Kyle. Kyle responded. And I... A moment after... Good evening. Kyle... Tonight, I have the pleasure of... Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled. Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss. I'm very... Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier. Rachel did not answer. Kyle pulled out his... Hello, Rachel began to run. Kyle stuck out his leg. But in a moment, she was up. Kyle produced his laser claymore and blocked her first offense. A grand fight between the two started. Blow was traded for blow. Spins, flips. Rachel threw a large swing towards Kyle's head. He blocked. Kyle and Rachel found themselves in... As they looked at each other, something magical happened.
Kiss.
Kyle thought about their time as detectives together. Kyle thought about her sharp deductions. He thought about her witty, polite answers to his questions. Rachel began to think about how well Kyle had prepared just to talk to her. She thought about how he cared for other people. She thought about... Kyle and Rachel had slowly, insidiously been falling in love. Kyle and Rachel's lock broke. They continued to fight back and forth, but their eyes... Rachel spun around, leg out. She kicked Kyle's claymore out of... She grabbed Kyle by the front of the shirt and tugged him close. Perhaps, she whispered to him, the last thing I should steal is your heart. Rachel pecked Kyle on the lips and slid out the door, disappearing. In the following days, Rachel was not found. Many sums of money and artifacts that had been stolen from museums and banks were returned overnight. Small amounts of the sums were missing. Equal amounts were donated anonymously to homeless charities. Kyle spit Gabby back out after his fight with Rachel. She continued to be a vigilante and stopped many crimes. After receiving a note one night under his door, Kyle took a sudden vacation to a city in Europe. Although he had stated to his fans that it would be a short trip, he never returned. Slowly, Kyle fell out of the common mind. News outlets began to cover other topics. Reruns stopped airing. Kyle faded into obscurity. But it's rumored that a couple from the US has started a family on the coast of the British Isles. And they seem quite happy to not be famous anymore.
Trophy. That's 100%. Yeah.
Kyle woke up. Kyle started... Stay Up Late with Kyle ranked #1 and #2 show on New East Bridge being constructed after being found. Rachel May to unexpected... Who is the... Kyle fails to show up. Bug Vigilante shows up. Hot phone model recalled. Kyle's phone...
That's it. Thank you. Anybody that watches.